Thank you for tuning in to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, June Rochelle, and today we have Dr. Michael Baldwin with us. He is the Associate Professor of the Department of Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences from Purdue University. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, June.
Wow, that's a mouthful. Department of Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences.
It sure is.
Why don't you tell me some of the statistics? Let's go right into severe weather, since that's on a lot of people's minds, especially during the summer months and the spring. What are some statistics that you can share with our viewers today?
Well, there are lots of different types of severe weather hazards that can cause death and injury and damage. And on average, across the U.S., we usually see around 500 deaths per year, roughly. And actually, most of those, on average, are caused by heat. Heat waves actually are responsible for roughly 150 deaths per year across the U.S. Things like tornadoes and hurricanes, folks usually think of those as very deadly, and they definitely are. We typically see in the range of 100 deaths per year from those storms, but those numbers will go up and down depending on the severity of the storms and the locations that get hit. But we also see around 36 deaths a year due to lightning strikes and also flooding, and cold weather as well can be deadly. And so in Indiana, we can experience pretty much all of those types of weather hazards, and it's important for folks to know what the weather forecast is going to be, so they can be well prepared.
What do you find in Indiana is the most severe type of weather that we have here, or that we're facing, let's say, in the coming years, or that we will face?
Well, I would put all of those things on the table.
All of the above?
Yes. The heat is definitely a big issue, and usually we have drought associated with very hot weather. And in a state like Indiana, where agriculture is such a major industry, that can really have a huge impact, economically, and as well as personally for folks that are damaged by the heat. But probably the worst kind of weather event that someone could experience locally would be a tornado, and we definitely are in Tornado Alley here in Indiana. We have our share of strong and violent tornadoes across the state, and those. Everyone knows that the kind of damage that those storms can do, and so that's probably the most violent and immediately hazardous weather event that people should be aware of.
You mentioned that tornadoes do a lot of damage. Some viewers may not know to the extent what type of damage tornadoes can do. I mean, can you give some examples of, the scope of what all a tornado can do?
Sure. Probably there's a wide range of intensities for tornadoes. We see the most common type of tornado is actually a fairly weak tornado, and with winds that would be in the, say, 80 to 90 mile an hour range. And those tornadoes can definitely do damage to a structure. It might cause some damage to a roof, could knock down some tree limbs. But those weaker tornadoes usually aren't the deadly types. And as we get to stronger and stronger tornadoes where the wind speeds it'll get closer to 150 miles an hour or even 200 miles an hour, then the damage becomes more extreme, and we see well-built structures where walls are collapsing or roofs are completely ripped off. And for the most violent tornadoes, where we actually classify those as EF5, the entire structure can be blown away, and basically a slab or the basement would be all that's remaining. Now, those are extremely rare. We typically see about one of those EF5 tornadoes a year across the entire United States. So the stronger the storm, the more rare that event is, but that's the range of damage that we typically see.
Can an F5 tornado damage a brick structure?
Yes. You can see significant damage to well-built structures, brick structures, things like schools. We saw the example of this in the Moore tornado earlier this year, where schools were completely destroyed and walls had collapsed on the kids that were inside. So we can absolutely see that type of damage. But folks should know that there's a really good chance of surviving a storm, even as strong as an EF5 storm, if you take the proper shelter. And we saw this in 1999 with another storm that hit Moore, Oklahoma, where of the structures that were hit by an F5 tornado, only 1% of the people who took shelter in their homes died. And so there's a very good chance that these very violent storms can be survived if you take proper shelter.
So how important is disaster preparedness? Because in my opinion, those are weather-related disasters.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important. Folks need to be aware of the possible types of hazardous weather events, and just to be weather aware. Stay tuned to your favorite meteorologists. Check the National Weather Service forecasts. There's usually some indication that there's a good possibility that we'll have some type of weather hazard. Just so you know what could be happening, the timing, and just the range of possibilities. But going beyond that, it's also good to have some plan, just to know what to do in case that event does occur.
Would disaster preparedness be the same as someone living in the city, as someone living in a rural area?
It's going to be different for everybody, every individual, the different locations where you live, your personal situation. Are you taking care of loved ones? Is there medication or some medical equipment that you need to have handy? Do you have pets? Every situation is going to be different, and folks just need to really sit down and think about, talk with their family, talk with their neighbors, what they would do if a tornado were to come in their neighborhood. What would they do if a blizzard were to hit and the neighborhood were to lose power for several days, so that they know ahead of time. And if you've thought it out ahead of time, it's much easier to react quickly and do the right thing to keep yourself and your family safe.
So to have a written plan, and maybe like they do in offices and schools, even a drill?
It's a good idea to practice. Like you said, in schools and offices, it's routine to have a tornado drill, have a fire drill. Those are excellent ideas for folks to do at home, on an annual basis, or a similar type of frequency. Yeah, absolutely.
And would you recommend them having like a first aid kit and something like that? Just maybe put away or put in a special place?
Definitely. A first aid kit and food and water that is non-perishable, that would, give you about 3 days of supplies. And think of those things beyond the water and the food that you would need to have. Medicine is something that might be easy to forget about, and make sure you have that supply in that special place where you can get to it and use it if you need to.
Wow, that is a lot of information, and we have been facing a lot of different weather cycles and various things as far as the trends that you mentioned. But you say that the best thing to have is a plan.
Definitely.
Some type of plan. Is there a model or a guide for that plan?
Well, I think the source that I turn to is FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and they have an excellent website. It's ready.gov, and they go through the whole process for different types of hazards, different types of disasters. They talk about what to be prepared for, and then how to prepare for those things. So a site like that, or talking to your local sheriff or police, and to just try to get some helpful hints from those folks.
That is such good information, and for anybody that's tuning in today, you should have a good idea of there can be weather-related disasters and just all different types of weather, which is beyond our control. But if you have a plan and you practice the plan and you're prepared, then you can survive.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Dr. Michael Baldwin, Associate Professor of the Department of Earth, Atmospheric and Planetary Sciences. You're an expert in your field, I'm sure. Thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
To our viewers, thank you for tuning in to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, June Rochelle. We look forward to seeing you the next time, and we hope you got all the information that you needed today.
We used to get together every week. She's been home from her last deployment for months now, and I haven't seen her once.
He's just been different since he got back from Iraq. One minute he's ready to go, and the next he doesn't want anyone around.
The nightmares are back and seem to be getting worse. Shouldn't he be sleeping better after all these years?
A lot of people don't understand what veterans go through during their service or when they come back. And that's okay.
But everyone can help.
You can make a difference in the life of a veteran.
You stood by us when we were in uniform. So stand by us now.
Like my brother did. And he wouldn't take no for an answer.
Like my wife did when she asked the right questions.
Like my friend did when she made the call.
Stand by them. They stood by you. Visit veteranscrisisline.net.
Have you noticed your prescription medication disappearing? Changes in the eating or sleeping habits of your children? Changes in physical appearance, behavior, or personality? These might be signs that your child is abusing drugs or other substances. There are approximately 24,000 annual fatal unintentional drug poisonings in the U.S. Drug overdose deaths are second only to car crashes of unintentional injury deaths. The majority of deaths are largely due to misuse and abuse of prescription drugs. Hi, I'm Sharon Blair. I lost my daughter, Jennifer, to a drug overdose at age 29. I am working on the Jennifer Act, which is a legislative bill to bring aid and intervention to those who are addicted to drugs or alcohol and cannot stop using them on their own without help. Recovery is possible, and the Jennifer Act starts them in the right direction. If you would like more information, please visit www.thejenniferact.com.
Hi, and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, June Rochelle, and we have an awesome guest today. We have John Kindred, and he is the owner of Right at Home. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, June. It's great to be here.
John, I'd like to talk about families and how they care for other family members. What are some of the challenges as you are the owner, again, of a non-medical home care organization? What are some of the challenges that you've seen that families face when they are caring for other family members? Some of the stresses, some of the challenges?
There's quite a few. Some of the more common ones that we see are people not knowing what type of care is out there, what type of services are out there. And so that's one of the things that we try to do is when somebody calls us up and they have an issue, they know they need some help, they're not quite sure where to go, we will try to direct them. If we can provide care, if not, we'll try to push them in the right direction where they can get the care they need.
So what you find is that when people call, I mean, everyone doesn't need the same thing. So let's say families call in and they have a relative who's just been diagnosed with dementia or something like that. They call in. What type of direction are they going to get from you?
What we would do, we would ask them some questions to find about where the person is. It can be mild dementia, and some people with dementia just turn into really happy people. And then there's other people that once dementia starts setting in, they can start to be combative. And so each one could be a little bit different. But what we would try to do is do an assessment initially on the phone, and then we'd go out in person, but do an assessment to see where that person is and where the family needs help.
So when the family contacts you, would they have to know specifically what condition that their family member is struggling with? And while we're on that topic of conditions, what are some of the more challenging conditions that an individual and a family can have that really can cause serious challenges for them to be cared for? We mentioned dementia. What's some other ones?
I'd have to say that just losing their physical ability to get around in the home, and it sort of depends on the caregiver that's in there too. If you have a strong and able caregiver that can help take care of the person, then it should be able to work out okay. But if you have two people in there that maybe one of them has dementia, the other has physical disabilities that they have to contend with, and that can be a bit of a challenging situation.
So there can be a dynamic maybe with two seniors, a spouse, and one is needing care, or maybe an elderly family member that maybe the younger siblings or the son or daughter is taking care of. Is that the different dynamics that you see?
Yes, it could be for sure.
And in dealing with families, I really want to touch on what are the challenges when a family member is taking care of another family member. We know that there are some physical challenges, but are there any emotional challenges?
Oh, absolutely. I'd have to say that when you talk about the greatest generation, one of the biggest issues is this group of people, they went through a Great Depression, they went through World War II, they went through Korea, and they took us to the moon and back, safely, I might add. And this is a very proud group of people, and they want to be independent as long as possible. So lots of times they're hesitant to, one, accept help. I would also say that taking away driving is a huge issue because that's independence to them. So us sometimes trying to convince them that we can come in and just help them a little bit and maybe still stay in their home, which is what most people want to do. They want to stay at home. So that's what we try to do with them.
So a solution to them getting good care can be that they're able to stay in their homes. You're saying that the majority of the people that you do speak with, they really do want to be on their own. They want help, but they want to be on their own as well.
Absolutely. I haven't really run into too many people that say, well, I don't want to stay at home, I'd just rather move into assisted living. It's just, they have an attachment to their home most times. They've raised their kids there. They've lived with their spouse there for many, many years. So there's a real strong attachment. And also, if they do have dementia, it's harder for them to adapt to a new situation. So keeping them in a surroundings that they're used to can be very beneficial to them.
Now, certain types of care, what would you say are some of the more important, immediate things that those family members may need if they're, you know, in a position where they do have to have assistance? What are some of the more immediate needs that you would think of? We heard driving, but what are some other ones?
I would have to say just the things that can keep them safe at home, and that can encompass a whole bunch of things. Number one, they tend to not eat as well as they should, and that can lead to a lot of things. Number one, they might be by themselves, and so if you live by yourself, you're not prone to fixing a really nice, well-balanced meal, so they'll just fix what they can or take something, maybe a pre-cooked meal from the store, which is high in salt, which may not be good. Making sure that they take their medications at the appropriate time is a big one too. And just doing the things in the home to help keep them sanitary too, like are they bathing, getting dressed, keeping their home clean, those kinds of things. Going to see the doctor is a big one too, transportation.
Transportation, so of course, getting their medication, they probably need transportation as well to get their medication. Because I don't know of a lot of seniors or people that do have issues where they have to get medication, where they get it in the mail. Most of them, they have to go to the pharmacy or to the doctor's office or somewhere like that.
Well, actually, there's a whole group of organizations that are forming to help support people staying at home.
Okay.
So you talk about them getting their medications and when do I take my medications, who's going to sort that out for me? And if you ever dealt with it, that can be pretty darn complex. So there's groups of people that will take a person's medications, pre-package them into a little packet, and so this is what you take at 8 a.m. in the morning, this is what you take at noon, and then you take these before you go to bed. So medications, yes, and one of the other groups that's starting to form too, and they've been around for a while, but they're just getting a lot of visibility. There are physicians and nurse practitioners that will come into your home. And that has been so beneficial to us because when somebody gets sick, they could be pretty much homebound, so getting them out to see the doctor in a timely manner can be a real challenge. So if you've already formed a relationship with a group of physicians or nurse practitioners that will come to your home and they know you, then they can respond much quicker than getting a person to a doctor.
So their care is very important. Once you figure out what organization that's going to assist you or to assist your loved one with that care, the next step is to implement that into, am I hearing you say that as many organizations as you need, you know, just get whatever you can get as far as the care for your family member? Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
That's exactly right.
So if you have to go to one organization to help with the medication and one organization to help with the care of the loved one, you know, or volunteers or whatnot, just make sure as you're caring for that family member that you get them all the help and the support that they need.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we've formed a lot of relationships with the various organizations that can provide that support. So we have our little niche there, but when we hear something needed that we can't provide, we'll make a referral to another organization that we feel very comfortable with.
So when the family member comes to you or the caregiver comes to you, you're able to actually point them in the direction for their specific needs. So you mentioned about fixing food and the dietary concerns of someone who may be taking lots of medication or up in years. So you have somewhere to refer them for meal planning?
Yes. For example, Meals on Wheels, if they can't prepare it for themselves, or SECOA, Central Indiana Council on Aging, they have a program called Meals and More that they will deliver well-balanced meals to the individual. And then as far as balanced meals, we could go in and prepare those meals for them ourselves.
So far, for our viewers watching today, if they're a family member and they're contemplating or they don't want to put their loved one in a facility, what are some of the top things that you can suggest to them as they embark on this journey to take care of that family member?
Start investigating before they actually need help, because there's a lot of resources out there and you're just not aware of it. I don't know how many phone calls I've got where somebody said, gosh, mom fell, she's going to the hospital, and in 3 days she's going to go into a facility for rehab. Where should I send her? And then they just sort of get caught. They don't know where to go, what to do. And then when they go into the rehab, when it's time to leave, they just aren't aware of what type of help is at home. And that's one thing we really try to do in various ways, is educate them.
So preparedness is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely.
Don't wait until it's actually time to provide that care, although some of those circumstances can't be avoided.
Exactly.
But if at all possible, get as much information as you can, especially if you see that, you know, coming into play, that they may need some help, and then maybe keeping a file or something like that and a list of numbers and go from there.
Exactly. That would be a good idea.
Okay. Well, we've gotten a lot of good information today, and it's always good to know if there's a problem, if there's a solution. And it sounds like that right at home is a place where people can come to get solutions to and to get answers to taking care of their family members and or seniors in their family. It's always good to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's my motto. And we've learned today that there are avenues to get support when you're facing those challenging times, such as taking care of a loved one who may have some medical or mental issues. So, John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, June.
And we hope that you have gotten a lot of information. It's always our goal here to give you everything that you need to get you through this journey. My name is June Rochelle. Thank you for tuning in to Joy in Our Town, and we'll see you next time.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.